Two very dramatic developments over the last few hours, in my opinion, tell us a lot about the year we are going into, the year 2024, both on the political front and on the social front, and indeed on life in general in our dear motherland. And both of these two events, which I want to highlight on my show today, are totally unprecedented in our country. It has never ever happened before. Since Kenya was born, over 60 years ago. Drama number one. Kenyans take to the streets protesting in favor of the housing levy. And I believe I've used the Mzungu's language accurately. Okay? They were not supporting the housing levy. They were protesting the lack of interest, the opposition amongst a vast majority of Kenyans against the housing levy. Drama number two, and you might want to sit down for this one. The Supreme Court dismisses an appeal by Justice Said Juma Chitembwe over his dismissal by the Judicial Service Commission for gross misconduct and corruption. Now, I know some of us may be thinking, there is no big deal there, Chris. We know that judges in Kenya are corrupt. Now hold your horses for a minute. Where's the evidence? What? Where is the evidence? What you and I know as common knowledge has never been successfully proven in a court of law. Never ever. But this case of Justice Chitembwe was so dramatic. It even included a video where the accused judge was captured in video and audio talking about bribe money. Now stay with me and you'll discover why I'm saying these two pieces of drama over the last few hours in the motherland are a very clear illustration of what kind of year we should expect in 2024. But first, let us look at them in a bit more detail. Now, I beg to be educated because I don't know everything. I'm always researching. I'm always finding out. And I've done a little research, maybe not as much as I usually do. That is why I'm asking for your help. Can somebody point out to me a time in history, anywhere in the world, where the people of a country have demanded to be taxed? It does not matter what the promised benefit from that tax is. Just please point out to me instances where people have gone to the streets, protesting the resistance of others over a tax the government wants to implement, or rather a tax a government has already implemented, with dire consequences on the country's economy. Lakini wacha nikate kizungu mingi. Okay? This was a stage managed protest. In other words, people were paid to go to the streets. Now that is very understandable right now, It is not acceptable. It's not an excuse. But it is understandable in that Kenyans are going through very hard times right now. Yeah, you go into a slum area, or you go into the Juakali Association and you tell people, we want you to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, and in return, hii ndo pesa ya lunch. This should cover your expenses. I don't think you lack people to assist you. Stage managed. Who financed it? I don't want to laugh a lot. I'm trying to recover from cough manenos. But who may have sponsored this protest in support of the housing levy? Who? I think the answer is very obvious. Promoters of the same housing levy. Okay? I think that should be pretty obvious. And where do we find these promoters of the housing levy? They're in a political party, yeah, called UDA. Now, many of us will remember that during campaigns, there were rumors, word on the street was, that people were being paid to attend UDA rallies. And so if those rumors were true, what unfolded a few hours ago in Nairobi would be consistent with the behavior of this political party called UDA, yeah, which is in the ruling Kenya Kwanza coalition, indeed the main party, and the party of William Ruto. A party that has disturbing resemblance to another party that used to be called URP, which was in a coalition with Uhuru Kenyatta's TNA, yeah, and won the 2013 presidential elections, allegedly. Now, when you really think about it, this development is extremely disturbing. Why do I say that? Because it tells us that the government of William Samoei Ruto is not going to backpedal on what they're already doing, taxing people. There is no change of policy anybody should expect that will ease the burden of Kenyans, for the simple reason that money is being used to promote the current taxation regime. Okay? You know, when somebody sponsors something, when somebody spends money on something, that thing cannot be short term. The whole idea behind spending money is that you want to firmly establish it. Yeah? High taxes are going to be firmly established in the country called Kenya. That is really what it means. And you will agree with me that that is very bad news, because it is very clear to all Kenyans, hata wale wajasoma, that these punitive taxation policies of Ruto are damaging the country called Kenya. Indeed, they are finishing Kenya, because you need people in a country to have money to spend, for that country to go anywhere. For that country even to survive, you need as many people as possible in that country to have money in their pockets. And therefore, when the government is raiding, and still planning and plotting more raids on the pockets of Kenyans, then you know, hata kama hukusoma, that what is happening is that the country is being crippled further. Yeah, the country's economy is already in ICU, but very deliberate, aggressive efforts are being done to ensure that this patient called Kenya does not recover, to ensure that this patient does not make it. Because logic tells you, if you want to treat something, the first thing you need to do is to remove that patient from that situation that caused the whole problem in the first place. Yeah, that's the first thing you do. In fact, you can even put an oxygen mask over them, yeah, to assist their breathing, because you're trying to save their life. But what is happening right now in Kenya is that this patient in ICU, the oxygen mask has been taken out of the room completely. You are to me. And although the patient is very weak, dying, you're still injecting them with adrenaline. What? That is exactly what our situation is in Kenya today. And these demonstrations, these protests on the streets of Nairobi a few hours ago should underline that very clearly for all of us. By the way, I did not hear anything about police brutality over these particular demonstrations. I did not hear anybody say that these protests were illegal, were not good for the country, which is not the same thing that happened when genuine Kenyans who had not been paid to do so took to the streets to support Azimio, took to the streets to protest against electoral injustices and the implementation of the Finance Bill 2023 ambayo imemaliza Kenya kabisa. Those demonstrations caused major problems in Kenya. But these ones of yesterday, they were okay. There was no problem. There was nothing illegal about them. The police bosses in Nairobi did not get hot under the collar over these protests. That is strange, don't you think? Now this Justice Chitembwe Manenos, hii ni movie. In fact, it is beyond a movie, because it has too much drama. Now very quickly, before we dive deeper into that, please allow me to introduce you to our sponsors for today's show. And this is a property along Thika Super Highway, half an acre, which is ideal for commercial ventures. A petrol station, hotel, apartment block, whatever. Because it is very strategically placed along this very busy Thika Super Highway. This is obviously prime property, and the asking price is 75 million. Now, in case you're in the market for this, or you're very interested in something like this, you can see the telephone numbers you should use on your screens right now. This, in my opinion, is an opportunity, because anything on the Thika Super Highway has to be gold. And also concerning our ongoing tradition on this channel, there are only 2 days left for you to participate. I take this opportunity to thank from the bottom of my heart all those of you who have made the sacrifice to support me and what we are doing on this channel. It is definitely something that will stand the test of time. You can see details on your screens on what you need to do and how to do it. Thanks so much in advance. Right. On to this drama, bin drama, Arab drama, ole drama. Chitembwe Manenos. Now, one of the reasons why judges have survived, corrupt judges, all these decades is because they are careful. It goes without saying that when you go into meetings like this ones, you leave your mobile phone in the car. And this is exactly what former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko did on that fateful day that launched the downfall of this High Court judge. So what recording device was used here? These days, there are very many ways of secretly recording somebody. For instance, you can use glasses, spectacles. So Mike Sonko walks into this judge's home, residence, and of course this judge knows that Sonko already has a reputation at that time of recording things which he later unleashes on social media. Maybe the guy missed a calling in the journalism profession. Yeah. But the judge is relaxed because Sonko has left his phone in the car. And therefore the conversation that shocked Kenyans unfolds, where judges and the amount of money they're asking to make cases go away is mentioned. And by the way, Mike Sonko and Justice Said Juma Chitembwe are related. They're relatives through marriage. And here is where it gets even more interesting. At the time, Mike Sonko had been impeached by Nairobi MCAs as Nairobi Governor. And guess who was heading the bench that would potentially have saved Sonko and restored him as Governor of Nairobi? It was Justice Chitembwe. Now let us put this in the proper perspective. Yani you have a case in court, and then you go and have a discussion with one of the judges who is presiding over your case at his house. Yeah? Anyway, what was Sonko's motives in making this particular recording? Can we speculate that perhaps if the court had ruled in his favor, this particular recording would never have seen the light of day? Can we speculate that if things had gone Sonko's way, Justice Said Juma Chitembwe would still be a High Court judge today? Because this is the particular recording that went viral on social media that finished this judge. However, at the Judiciary Service Commission hearing, many other incidences involving the judge were brought up, including one that unfolded in Malindi in 2015 over a succession case. A beautiful young Kamba lady called Jane Mutula Chengo lost her Mzungu husband, Peter Warner, and Jane Chengo, using a corrupt judicial system, managed to get a grant as the only heir to her husband, despite the fact that this man had children. And Justice Chitembwe was involved, according to evidence given at the Judicial Service Commission and presented to the Supreme Court. And everything went like clockwork until 3 Maasais showed up. Hey, yep, you heard me correctly. 3 Maasais showed up. You see, Bwana Warner had done something very strange. He had registered all his properties to 2 companies. And in these 2 companies, there were 4 directors. Himself as the main shareholder, and then there were 3 other Maasais. In other words, this Mzungu did something very wise, in my opinion. He looked at all the possibilities of the future, especially in a corrupt country called Kenya. And so when these 3 Maasais went to court, and revealed that Jane had falsified documents and told the court that Jane had given the courts the wrong impression, that the properties were not solely owned by Bwana Warner, but actually were owned by 2 companies, things got complicated. Bottom line, this small detail of 3 Maasais is what caused the exposure of all the funny dodgy things that were happening over this succession case. I am convinced that in the year 2024, we will continue with this trend of shocking cases, shocking exposure of all the dirty, underhand, dodgy things, corrupt things happening in the nation of Kenya. In the year 2024, these exposures will bring down very powerful people in the country called Kenya. We have already seen the first sign of that with the super fascinating case we've just discussed of Justice Said Juma Chitembwe. Now, in case you didn't know, it is very difficult to bring a judge down. In Kenya, it is almost impossible, because the judiciary protects its own. You take a judge to court, the judges who will hear the case are friends of the judge, or even if they're not friends, there is a code that they will protect each other. And if that does not happen, money will change hands in the corridors of justice, and you will go absolutely nowhere. But I want us to take note of the small details, the things which went wrong here and there, that led to the downfall of Justice Chitembwe. Because after the Supreme Court, there is nowhere else he can appeal. Regulars on this channel will of course be aware of the fact that we're in the season of judgment from Almighty God over the sins of the nation called Kenya. And they'll also be aware that judgment goes with something called exposure. Yani, people are exposed. And when you hear the news, when the news breaks, you do not believe what you're hearing. You do not want to believe what you're seeing. You know that those people who believe, since this thing has been working all these years, kwani what is different with now? See, they'll still work. They've always worked. These things are foolproof. Nothing will happen. But of course, those kinds of people are not aware of something called a time and a season. The time and season the nation called Kenya has entered into is a deadly one. And it does not matter if the evil you are doing you got away with for the last 100 years. That one doesn't matter. In this season, there's a high likelihood it will not work, because it is the wrong season to be doing the wrong things. Keen observers of our political scene will know that some of the things the UDA government is doing and has been caught, scandals are broken, are things which have been done in Kenya for a long time. But the problem this time round is that it is the wrong season. It is the wrong time for these things to keep on working as usual. A quick reminder with the details on your screens right now. For all those of you who want to participate, this of course goes a long way in supporting what we're doing on this channel, where we make a huge effort to do only things that will stand the test of time, all for a better Kenya. And so, my friends, put on that seatbelt, brace yourself for a very dramatic and rough ride ahead in the year 2024. And if before my show today you did not think much of the season we have entered into, then these two developments we have discussed today over the last few hours should open your eyes to sit up and pay attention. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.